This Halloween, I wanted to make a creepy game to celebrate the holiday. What I came up with was a battle against this monster. The monster is called the Limp, because it originally limped towards you. Now it just kind of floats around because that fit the gameplay better. Every time it makes contact, your pain meter goes up. Conversely, you can attack back with your sword, but for this to work, the Limp must be close enough for this HUD element to appear, but before the two circles overlap. Every time the Limp takes damage, it drops health crystals, which can be collected by the sword to reduce the pain meter. Obviously, this is a very simple game. I wanted to spend a lot of time on this project, but because I was busy with other things, I only got about 1 week to finish it. As such, I wanted to actually be able to finish it on time. My original concept was that you'd be trapped in a square-shaped hallway, with a monster hidden behind the middle of the room. It would move towards you in some direction, but you wouldn't know which until you saw it. The catch is that you could only look in one direction at a time, so you'd have to keep switching directions until you notice the monster and can move to relative safety. It seemed like this wouldn't be particularly fun, so I changed the concept to be a bit more action-oriented, so the hallway is now straight, and you have to keep pushing back the monster to survive. I thought it was essential that the game be first-person, but I had no intention of making a game that's actually 3D. Instead, I pre-rendered the background in Blender and just displayed it in-game as a sprite. That cutscene you saw at the beginning of the video was supposed to use the same technique, but as it turns out, GameMaker doesn't really like sprites with hundreds of frames at full resolution, so it doesn't actually appear in the game, which I was quite disappointed about. Time for the star of the show, the Limp. Its main form of attack is to bash into you, but it can approach you in many different ways, like charging forward, to the side, in a random direction, or this wavy pattern. It picks a new technique every time it's damaged, so if you miss an attack, the Limp will keep attacking in the same way, which actually makes it easier to get out of a combo. In addition to an X and Y axis, the Limp also has a Z axis, which handles depth. This determines how large to make its image and how close it can get to a wall. You might notice that this can sometimes cause the Limp to slide against a wall, which actually adds a nice depth to the world. I tried to make the Limp very creepy. It's always smiling, very round, and makes a droning, screeching noise. Eventually, after enough hits, this happens. Yes, after it takes enough damage, it turns into an even louder, floating brain. As a brain, the Limp moves even faster and becomes significantly more aggressive. Like the background, the Limp's graphics are pre-rendered. Here you can see a high-resolution image of both forms. To best model the brain, I felt it should be sculpted. The problem is, I've never done digital sculpting before, so I had to learn from scratch. I expected it would be quite difficult, but I actually got the hang of it quickly. To add to the creepiness, I decided to add a delay before the Limp actually appears. My first try, I forgot to add a line of code, which caused it to do this. Honestly, this result was so far removed from what I thought the code could do that I was absolutely caught off guard and terrified by my own game. The line I forgot to add basically deletes the object that spawns the Limp, so every frame it just kept creating a new instance. In this game, you fight with a sword. Believe it or not, you actually control it with the mouse and the A, S, and D keys. To make this decision make sense, I'll explain my full thought process. To start, you have to attack the Limp to damage it, but it would be too easy if you could damage it at any time, so it must be close enough. Obviously, you could just click all the time to make the timing easier, so I considered adding a cooldown, but that didn't seem fun. Mashing the button didn't seem fun either, so I considered removing the attack button altogether, until I realized that was an even dumber idea. Finally, I just set the attack buttons to A, S, and D. With this setup, you can rest your ring, middle, and index finger on the 3 keys to mash just as fast but with less strain. It still gets tiring after a while, but I figured that could just be a part of the game. Like you're supposed to get tired, so that by the time you reach the final phase, victory seems even more desperate. Now, I also wanted to add an interesting way of healing, so whenever the limp is attacked, it drops 3 health crystals. To actually get healed, you have to hover over the crystals, which means you might have more difficulty countering attacks. I think this functions as a decent risk and reward system. If you take too much damage, and the pain meter reaches the top of the screen, you simply die and are booted back to the title screen. So how does this game end? Well, after continually mashing the attack buttons, collecting health, barely keeping up with the pace of the battle, and literally landing your 200th hit, the limp finally dies, along with its annoying screech. You're treated to this lovely floating text, which you can peacefully enjoy along with the sounds of the rain outside. After a while, you go back to the title screen and can try again if you want. I had a lot of fun making this game. What surprised me was that I actually enjoyed making the graphics, and especially the sounds. I think that comes from the inherent value of bringing everything together in a way that's really special, and quintessentially Halloween. Overall, I'm just really glad that this is how the project turned out, and I'd like to make more games with a similar outlook in the future. I noticed that recently my videos have been getting slightly more attention, and I've been getting comments more consistently. Reading comments is easily my favorite part of publishing videos, because they sort of humanize a mostly silent audience. So, if you can, I'd really appreciate if you drop a comment before you leave. Thank you. Bye.